Another one for you, Greg, the manager sighed, barely looking up as the soaked, nervous woman stepped into the luxury showroom. What no one knew? That woman mopping floors and fumbling through a dusty training manual was actually the owner of the dealership, and she was there for revenge. What follows? What follows is a stunning tale of betrayal, humiliation, and redemption. As a self-made black CEO goes undercover inside her own business and discovers a culture poisoned by arrogance. But instead of walking away, she crushes the problem at its root, and what she does next leaves her entire staff stunned. This is more than a story about cars. It's a story about second chances, true leadership, and what happens when the quiet ones finally speak up. Now, before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We share powerful, meaningful stories like this every day. And drop a comment below to let us know where you're watching from. Thank you. And now, let's get back to the story. Is this the level of professionalism you pride yourself on? The woman asked quietly, her voice calm but slicing through the air like a cold gust. Troy Stanford blinked, confused by the sudden question. He glanced up from his phone, then down at the woman who had just walked in, dressed in baggy jeans, a worn t-shirt, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days. Her hair was tied into a careless bun, and a cheap pair of sunglasses rested low on her nose. She didn't look like anyone important. He scoffed. "You need something?" he asked flatly, already half turning his gaze back to his screen. The woman tilted her head slightly, studying him. She didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. "Yeah," she said finally, soft and unthreatening. "HR sent me. I'm the new sales trainee." Troy let out a long theatrical sigh, loud enough for half the showroom to hear. "Another one for you, Grant," he shouted over his shoulder. Behind a glass-walled office, a balding man in his 50s with a gut that tested the limits of his dress shirt shuffled out like he'd just been woken from a nap. Grant didn't even look at the woman as he approached. "New blood, huh?" he muttered. "Great. Come on, let's get this over with." The woman followed silently, the thick, humid Baton Rouge air still clinging to her skin like a second layer. As she passed the gleaming black floor and the rows of pristine Bentleys and BMWs, she caught her reflection, faint, ghostly, in the curved body of a Range Rover. For a brief second, she barely recognized herself. Her name was Dana Tucker, and what nobody in that showroom realized, not Troy, not Grant, not the sales reps whispering nearby, was that she was the owner of Tucker Auto Haus. Not a regional manager, not some corporate suit from headquarters. The founder. The woman whose name was printed on every contract that crossed the showroom floor. The one who had built this place from nothing. And now, she was back. Undercover. Because something was wrong. Over the last 6 months, customer complaints had started trickling in, first about slow service, then about rudeness, discrimination, unreturned calls, ignored walk-ins. One woman said she'd been talked down to by a young male salesperson because she looked like she couldn't afford the upholstery. Another couple claimed they were completely ignored during a visit until the husband flashed his Rolex. At first, Dana had brushed it off. Every business hit rough patches. But when another half-dozen complaints hit her desk, all eerily similar in tone, she knew something deeper had taken root. Something she couldn't fix with another memo or a team-building seminar. She had to see it for herself, and to do that, she had to vanish, at least for a day. No one knew she'd be walking through the front doors dressed like this. No designer heels, no pearl earrings, no car service drop-off. She'd rented a beat-up blue Chevy Malibu and left her usual poise and polish behind. She needed to be just another nobody, just another pair of hands trying to earn a paycheck. And already, 5 minutes in, she felt sick. The back of the showroom was less impressive than the front. The gloss started to fade, literally and figuratively. The walls had smudges, the chairs were stained. There were no inspirational quotes about customer service or motivational plaques about integrity. Just a battered desk with peeling laminate and a single plastic chair. Grant tossed a training manual onto the surface with a careless thump. "Read this," he said, not even glancing at her. "We don't exactly babysit around here. You learn by watching." Dana opened the manual slowly, her fingers brushing the yellowed edges of its pages. Half of the text was outdated. Some of the product images were for models that had been discontinued 2 years ago. "Got it?" Grant asked, scratching his stomach through his shirt. She nodded. Just stay out of the way, he added, walking off. You see a customer, grab someone else to help you. Don't want you screwing anything up. Dana sat down, her spine stiff as a board. She had been in enough boardrooms to recognize incompetence when she saw it. But this wasn't just laziness, it was decay, a cultural rot that had spread from the roots up, like termites hollowing out the frame of a home that once stood proud. She heard them before she saw them. 3 salespeople clustered near the water cooler just a few feet away. They were laughing. Loudly. Carelessly. Like teenagers in the back of a classroom. I give her 2 weeks. One of them said, an overly made-up woman with bright red nails and a smug smile. Tops. She looks like she can't even spell jaguar. The others cackled. A short man with greasy, slicked-back hair snorted. She looks like she walked out of a gas station, not a dealership. She's not going to make a single sale, added the third, a heavy-set guy whose tie hung loose around his neck. HR's scraping the bottom of the barrel lately. Dana said nothing. Her eyes stayed on the manual, but her ears burned. Every word landed like a knife between her ribs. This is what her company had become? Toxic, arrogant, entitled. She clenched her jaw, inhaled deeply through her nose, and pressed on. By early afternoon, Dana had tried approaching customers, twice, and both times another sales rep swooped in ahead of her like a vulture chasing roadkill. She watched as one couple, middle-aged, dressed plainly, was completely ignored. Nobody offered a greeting. Nobody asked if they had questions. After a full 20 minutes, the couple simply walked out. Dana stared at their retreating backs through the showroom's glass doors, then turned and looked at the sales team. They were chatting again, laughing, checking phones, filing nails. This wasn't just a team gone off course. This was betrayal. Everything Dana had worked for, the nights she slept in her car, the years she couldn't afford her own health insurance, the weekends spent hand-washing trucks and doing cold calls from a $30 flip phone, all of it had been for something greater. Respect, dignity, empowerment, a space where customers felt cared for, not conned, and now it was being destroyed from the inside, by people she had trusted to carry her legacy forward. She needed to see more. So when the staff break room cleared out for the late lunch shuffle, Dana slipped in quietly. The room was cramped and smelled of reheated fast food. A stained coffee pot hissed in the corner. She walked over to a paper cup, about to pour herself some water, when she heard laughter echoing in from the hallway. Troy again. Did you see that new chick they dumped on us? He said. She looks like she wandered in from a flea market. Greg's grating laugh followed. Yeah, maybe she thought we were hiring janitors. Dana stood frozen. Then came the words that sealed it. She's not our kind, Greg muttered. Tucker Autohaus is for a premium crowd. We sell dreams, not yard sale specials. They all laughed. Dana didn't. She backed out of the room slowly, her vision narrowing. They didn't just insult her, they insulted everyone like her. Every woman who came in without a Rolex. Every father who walked in wearing work boots. Every immigrant, every single parent, every dreamer who had to look the part before they were treated like they mattered. Her hands shook, but not from fear, from focus. It was time to remind them who she was and what this company stood for, and she wasn't going to do it behind closed doors. She was going to do it where it would hit the hardest, right there, in the middle of the showroom floor. Where it all began. The break room door shut behind her with a hollow click. Dana stood still in the hallway, as if time itself had paused around her. A bitter taste coated her mouth, not just from the insult, but from the weight of what it represented. The showroom she built had become a stage for elitism and casual cruelty. These weren't isolated attitudes. This wasn't just one bad apple. It was a culture, spoiled, complacent, arrogant. And it was being led by men like Grant, enabled by voices like Troy's, normalized by women like Jessica and every other smiling face that turned cold the moment someone didn't fit their idea of premium. Dana didn't just feel anger, she felt grief. This place had once felt sacred to her. It was more than a business. It was her second home, her greatest achievement, and her promise to every customer who never felt seen. Now, she barely recognized it. As she walked back across the shining showroom floor, her reflection danced between the chrome bumpers and tinted windows. She didn't see the powerful CEO in heels and a tailored blazer. She saw the young woman she used to be, broke, underestimated, scraping coins together at gas stations to afford flyers for her tiny used car startup. If anyone had talked to her the way they'd spoken to today's walk-ins, she would have walked away forever. How many others had already done just that? How many had been dismissed with a glance, because their shoes weren't polished, their hair wasn't styled, or their wallets weren't flashing? Dana dropped into the same desk chair that had greeted her that morning like a punishment. Her hand clenched around the crumpled manual. She stared at it. Its outdated fonts, its dog-eared pages, its apathetic tone. She opened to the first page. Welcome to Tucker Auto House. Here, we pride ourselves on exceptional service and integrity above all. She laughed under her breath. Sharp, bitter, disbelieving. Just then, she heard Grant's voice echo across the floor. All right, guys. Wrap it up. Good job today. It was 5:30 p.m. on the dot. As if they hadn't spent half the day sitting around gossiping and ignoring customers. Now, they were grabbing their bags and making plans for Friday night drinks. Dana could already hear the bar jokes being formed. Drinks at Murphy's? Let's see who passes out first, someone shouted. Troy chuckled, tossing his jacket over his shoulder. I'm already halfway there. Jessica tapped her nails on the filing cabinet, grinning. Let's go before HR sends us another charity case. Nobody looked in Dana's direction. Nobody said goodbye. To them, she was invisible. A smudge on the floor. She stood up slowly. Her breath was steady, her limbs calm, her mind razor sharp. No more watching, no more pretending. It was time to remind them who she really was. And time to show them that arrogance comes at a cost. She walked slowly, deliberately toward the center of the showroom. Her sneakers barely made a sound on the polished tiles. She moved between the Jaguars and Bentleys like a phantom crossing sacred ground. Then, right in the center of the floor, between the two biggest luxury vehicles on display, she stopped and clapped her hands together. Once, loud, commanding. Every head in the room turned. Troy froze mid-step. Jessica paused her laugh, her face caught in a twitch. Grant stopped just outside his office door, frowning. Can I have everyone's attention? Dana asked. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It carried through the room like a calm before the storm. She took off her sunglasses, placed them on the desk beside her, and let the moment stretch. I don't think most of you know who I am, she continued, her eyes scanning every startled face. But I know exactly who you are. A thick silence swallowed the room. No phones buzzed. No feet shuffled. Just the low hum of the AC and the quiet thunder of reckoning. My name is Dana Tucker. Jessica's nail file slipped from her fingers, clattering on the floor. Troy's face went blank, then slowly flushed red. Grant stumbled out of his office. Wait. But Dana raised a hand, silencing him with a look colder than marble. I built Tucker Auto House, she said, from scratch. No fancy degrees, no wealthy investors, just hard work, long nights, risk after risk. This place, these cars, that logo on the building, she pointed upward. That's my name. Mouths fell open. A few took small, instinctive steps back. And today, I walked through those doors disguised as a trainee. Not because I wanted to play games, but because I wanted the truth. Not the version you send to corporate. Not the numbers on the spreadsheet. I wanted to see who you really are when you think no one's watching. Her voice sharpened. The heat that had simmered beneath her skin all day finally began to rise. And what I saw was disgraceful. She turned to Troy. You judged every person by the watch on their wrist and the car they pulled up in. You ignored real buyers because they didn't look rich enough. You mocked customers, you mocked staff, and you mocked me. Troy opened his mouth, but nothing came out. She turned to Jessica. You stood around all day, filing your nails, gossiping about who was worthy to work here. Jessica looked at the floor. Dana turned to Grant. You, she said, her voice low and pointed, you're supposed to lead, but I watched you set a tone of laziness, elitism, and entitlement. You laughed when your team mocked someone who didn't fit your perfect image of a salesperson. You didn't just fail me as a manager, you failed them. Grant's mouth twitched, but he didn't argue. He didn't dare. Then came the blow they weren't ready for. As of this moment, Dana said, enunciating every word, you are all suspended. Effective immediately. A collective gasp rippled through the room. What? She's kidding, right? Suspended. Wait, what? Dana nodded. You're going home without pay, and if you come back, if it'll be under new leadership, new rules, my rules." Her voice grew even, but hard. "This company is not about pretending to be elite. It's about service. It's about respect. It's about walking in here, whether in designer heels or steel-toed boots, and being welcomed, because you never know who you're talking to. Could be the janitor, could be the CEO." The room went silent again, but this time it was different. Heavier, not with confusion, but with consequence. "I'm not asking for perfection," Dana said, stepping forward. "But I demand integrity. I demand respect for customers, for colleagues, and for the work we do." She looked at them all, one by one. "I suggest you take the weekend to decide what kind of person you want to be when you come back, because the ones who don't understand the mission won't be part of it." With that, she turned her back to them and walked to the front windows, her reflection now steady, clear, unmistakable. Dana Tucker wasn't just taking her business back. She was burning the rot to the ground. And next week, she would rebuild it, brick by brick, value by value, with or without them. The sun rose sluggishly over Baton Rouge that Monday, stretching long shadows across the glossy windows of Tucker Auto House. The lot sat quiet, but beneath the silence was a storm waiting to be sorted, just like the people who worked here. Dana Tucker arrived just before opening. No disguise, no beat-up Malibu. She stepped out of her black Tesla Model S, heels clicking against the concrete as the sun glinted off the CEO reserved sign she hadn't used in months. Today wasn't about observation. Today was about judgment. She walked through the showroom doors with the same calm, steady presence she once used to greet investors, negotiate deals, and assure banks she was worth the risk. But this wasn't a negotiation. This was a reckoning. Inside, only 5 staff members had shown up. 5 out of a team of 14. The rest had either decided not to return or were too ashamed to face her. Troy was there, no smugness, no phone in hand. He stood near the front desk, shoulders slumped, his collared shirt buttoned awkwardly to the top like he was trying too hard to look professional. Jessica was seated behind a terminal, quiet, her red nails no longer flamboyant, just simple and bare. Greg leaned near the coffee machine, hands folded in front of him, no longer the authority figure, just a man stripped of title. The rest, 2 junior salespeople and a receptionist, stood near the conference nook, eyes darting nervously to Dana as she walked past. She said nothing at first. She simply stepped to the center of the floor, where only days ago she had stood in cheap sneakers pretending to be someone small. Now she stood tall, dressed in a sleek navy suit, with presence so commanding it felt like the room had shrunk to contain it. "Let's begin," she said simply. They circled her in silence. She held nothing in her hands, no clipboard, no punishment list, no HR rep to soften the blow, just her voice. "I'm not here today to humiliate anyone," Dana began, her eyes scanning the faces that couldn't meet her gaze. "But I am here because I believe people can change if they choose to." Her words were not cold, but they were deliberate, the kind that hung heavy in the air, the way truth does when it's undeniable. "You've seen the consequences of what happens when respect is treated like an option," she said. "Now I'm offering you a choice." She stepped to a nearby desk and placed a small stack of papers onto its surface. Crisp, neatly stapled, heavy with meaning. A new code of conduct. Simple, clear, non-negotiable. If you sign it, you stay. If you can't, that's your decision, but you don't come back. The tension was thick enough to cut with a key fob. The silence stretched until Troy took a step forward. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the contract. He read it. Not just skimmed, but actually read it. Respect every customer, no matter their appearance. Greet every guest like they're your only guest. Support your team. Lead with humility or follow with grace. And above all, serve with pride or not at all. He swallowed hard, then signed at the bottom. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't realize. I never thought I'd just thank you for not firing me outright." Dana gave a single nod. "Don't thank me yet. This is the easy part." Next came Jessica. Her eyes were red, mascara already smudged, but her jaw was set. She didn't say a word as she signed the paper, just handed it back with hands that no longer sparkled with rings, but trembled with remorse. Even Greg came forward, slower, his pride dragging behind him like a limp. He said nothing at all, just picked up the pen, paused for a long breath, and etched his name onto the line. One by one, the others followed. Dana didn't smile, not yet, but something inside her shifted. This wasn't redemption. Not yet. But it was a crack in the wall, a window letting in air. She stepped back to the center of the circle. This document is just a symbol, she said. What happens next, what you do when no one's looking, that's what matters. One kind word to a nervous buyer. One honest conversation with a customer who can barely afford the down payment. One moment where you choose patience instead of pride. They listened. Really listened. And if any of you slip again, she added firmly, if I hear so much as a whisper of what I heard last week, you won't get a warning. You'll just be gone. Dana didn't need applause. She didn't want it. What she wanted was transformation. And maybe, just maybe, it had started. Later that afternoon, the bell above the front doors chimed. A young couple walked in, a black man in construction boots and a woman holding a baby on her hip. They looked overwhelmed, shy, maybe even a little embarrassed. Dana stood to the side. She watched, waited. Jessica saw them first, and for the first time since Dana had known her, she didn't glance around hoping someone else would step in. She stood, smoothed her blouse, and approached with a smile. Welcome, she said gently. First-time buyers? The man nodded. Yeah, we're just looking. Well, no pressure at all, Jessica said. Can I get you some water? Anything for the little one? The woman looked shocked. Oh, sure. That would be nice. As Jessica walked away, Dana noticed Troy lean toward the couple with a brochure already open to the mid-size SUV options. You looking for something safe for the little one? I've got 2 kids. I can help you find something reliable and fair. Dana stood back, watching it all. No, it wasn't perfect. Not yet. But it was a beginning. The kind of beginning that mattered. As the day wound down, Dana walked past her office and toward the side window overlooking the lot. The reflection that met her gaze was the one she recognized again. Not the one who'd come in undercover and left shaking with anger, but the woman who fought her way through every obstacle to stand exactly where she was now. She thought of her father again. His words lived in her bones. When you see a problem, don't step around it. Crush it. So it never comes back. She had crushed it. Not with fury. Not with revenge, but with truth, with clarity, and with the kind of strength that builds legacies, not just showrooms. As she turned to leave, the young couple from earlier passed her near the door. The man paused, extended his hand awkwardly. Thanks, he said. Your staff's been real helpful. Wasn't expecting that, to be honest. Dana smiled. You're always welcome here. That's what we're here for. As they left, Dana looked back one last time at the team regrouping inside. A team that had been broken. A team she had almost given up on. But people can change, if they want to. And when they do, the whole world starts to feel just a little more just. The next morning unfolded like a quiet test. No drama, no speeches, just the steady hum of a new rhythm trying to find its footing. Dana arrived early again, not to observe from the shadows, but to reinforce her presence as a leader. A real one. The kind who walked the floor, shook hands, and made eye contact with the janitor the same way she did with the highest-paying client. Tucker Auto House was still spotless on the surface. Gleaming tiles, perfectly parked Bentleys, fresh air diffusers pumping that signature new leather scent into the vents. But Dana knew that what mattered now wasn't polish. It was purpose. By 9:15, the 5 staff members who returned yesterday had already begun to shift. Subtle, but real. Troy greeted customers by standing, not lounging. He'd shaved too. His cologne was modest, his attitude even more so. Jessica had actually swapped her heels for modest flats, and her desk had a notepad for follow-up calls instead of nail polish and takeout menus. Greg even sent an email to the whole staff with notes on how to properly welcome a first-time buyer. Dana didn't react with praise. Instead, she observed with hope and measured trust. But it was the moment around 10:45 a.m. that truly began to solidify the transformation. A weathered pickup truck pulled into the lot. The engine sputtered a little, the body bore the scrapes of 1,000 job sites, and the man who stepped out wore a plain white t-shirt stained with drywall dust. His boots were caked with old concrete. He walked slowly, uncertainly, clutching a yellowed envelope. No Rolex, no leather shoes, no briefcase, just a man trying to be seen. From across the showroom, Dana saw Greg glance up and do a double take. She held her breath. Greg stood, walked to the door. He didn't hesitate. "Good morning," he said with an open hand. "Welcome to Tucker Auto House. You looking for something specific today?" The man shifted nervously. My niece said to come here. I got a pre-approval letter. Wasn't sure if this was the right place." Greg smiled genuinely. "Then you came to the right place." Dana could feel something unfurling in the space between them, a kind of reawakening, a memory of what this job was supposed to be. He led the man inside, pulled up 2 chairs at a clean table, offered him a bottle of cold water, and began asking real questions. Not about income, not about down payments, but about what mattered. "How far do you drive for work? What's most important to you? Space, comfort, reliability? Do you need something that can handle job sites?" It was the best kind of sales conversation. The kind that felt like a collaboration, not a transaction. And Dana stood in the back, silent but deeply moved. It wasn't a miracle, but it was proof. When given the chance to step up, even the most calloused hands could learn to offer grace. Around noon, Dana stepped out briefly to grab a sandwich from a local deli she used to visit when she was just getting started. The owner, Mrs. Hattie, recognized her instantly. "Dana Tucker," she said, placing a hand on her chest. "Well, I'll be. You still running that car place?" Dana laughed. "Trying to keep it alive." "You're not trying," Hattie said firmly. "You're doing. Don't forget that." The reminder warmed her heart. She walked back to the dealership slower, more grounded. As she crossed the showroom again, she spotted a young woman standing awkwardly by the reception desk, barely out of college, if that. Her clothes were neat but modest, her resume clasped in her fingers like it might disintegrate if she breathed wrong. Jessica approached her. "Can I help you?" she asked. The woman hesitated. I'm here about the trainee program?" Jessica blinked. Dana watched. This was it. Another test. Jessica smiled, warmly, and not the fake kind. "Of course," she said. "Let me grab our new program packet for you. You thirsty? We've got coffee or water while you wait." The young woman nodded, surprised. Dana stepped up beside them. "She can sit at my desk," she told Jessica gently. "And I'll go over the expectations personally." Jessica didn't flinch. She smiled at Dana and said, "She'll be in good hands." And just like that, the cycle of redemption widened. That afternoon, Dana called a team huddle. Not in the conference room, not over Zoom, right in the center of the showroom. The same place she'd made her revelation just days before. The same floor that had once echoed with laughter and judgment. Now it bore something new, humility. They circled up. Troy, Jessica, Greg, the junior salespeople, the receptionist, even the janitor paused to listen. "I want to thank you," Dana began, "not for being perfect, but for showing up and choosing better." They watched her closely. "I've been thinking a lot about what respect really looks like. It's not just how you speak to customers. It's how you speak about them. It's how you speak to each other. How you carry yourselves when there's no bonus at stake." She let her gaze settle on each of them. "It's not a switch you flip when the boss is watching. It's a mindset, a culture. And now, we're rebuilding that culture. Together." A beat of silence. Then Greg raised his hand, not to interrupt but to ask. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I was lazy. I let good people get trampled. But if you're still willing to have me, I'd like to earn my way back." Dana nodded. "That's the only way it works now. No titles without accountability. No chairs without contribution." Jessica added, "I've already made a list of community outreach events we can sponsor. We need to show people we care, not just say it." Troy glanced around. "I'll take on the next 5 walk-ins, personally. Doesn't matter what they drive." Dana allowed herself a small smile. "Good, because the next person who walks through that door might be just like me a decade ago. No brand names, no polish, but everything to prove." At 5:57 p.m., just as the team began prepping for close, another customer stepped in. A middle-aged woman with paint-splattered pants, a tired look in her eyes, and a notebook filled with lists. She looked nervous. She looked real. Troy looked up from his desk and this time didn't hesitate. He crossed the showroom with a calm, genuine smile. "Evening, ma'am," he said. "How can we help you today?" The woman looked startled. "Oh, I wasn't sure if y'all were about to close." "We're here until you're taken care of," Troy said. "That's the rule now." She smiled. "Well then, I guess I'm in the right place." From across the floor, Dana watched it unfold, her heart full. It had taken just a few days, but the soul of Tucker Auto House had begun to return. And not because she yelled, Because she acted. With courage. With clarity. With consequences. She whispered something her father once told her, just to herself. Sometimes you don't need a bigger hammer. You just need to hit the right spot. She turned off the lights to her office that night, not with a heavy heart, but with purpose. The rebuild was underway, and the foundation was stronger than ever. The next morning, the air inside Tucker Autohaus carried something different, something Dana Tucker hadn't felt there in months. Conviction. People weren't just showing up. They were showing up. Phones answered on the first ring. Customers greeted at the door. Laughter was still present, but now it carried humility, not mockery. The entire staff moved like a team, not a pack of arrogant individuals fighting for commission, but a company rediscovering its soul. But Dana knew better than to assume change was permanent just because it had begun. Old habits die hard, and sometimes the ghosts of a toxic culture don't vanish. They wait. Sure enough, by midday, one of those ghosts came walking back through the front doors. His name was Malik Santos. A former top seller, sharp-tongued, quick-footed, and once Greg's favorite closer. He hadn't shown up the morning Dana gave the ultimatum, likely assuming he could ride out the storm and come back when it blew over. Now he stood in the glass vestibule, wearing mirrored shades, a gold chain, and that same cocky grin he always carried. Troy noticed him first and stiffened. Jessica whispered something under her breath and turned toward Dana. "She here?" Malik called out. "I need to talk to Miss Tucker." Dana stepped out from her office and walked calmly toward the floor. The entire team paused. Greg crossed his arms. "We don't need this." But Dana held up a hand. "Let's see where he stands." Malik strode in like he owned the place. "You probably missed me, huh?" he joked, winking at one of the junior saleswomen who quickly looked away. "Heard there was some kind of shake-up. Figured I'd come back, smooth things out." Dana studied him. She didn't smile. "You didn't show up Monday," she said plainly. Malik shrugged. "Heard you gave everyone a timeout, needed a little vacation. Anyway, let's talk numbers. I got a couple clients lined up already. We'll be back in the green by the end of the week." Troy spoke up, his voice tight. "It's not about numbers anymore." Malik's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" Jessica took a step forward. "It's about values now, and respect. You don't walk back in here like nothing happened." Malik laughed. "Wow, you two get promoted while I was gone?" Dana's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "No one here gets to lead by swagger anymore, Malik. They lead by example." He rolled his eyes. "Come on, Dana." "Miss Tucker," she corrected, her tone sharp. He smirked, but the swagger cracked. "Fine, Miss Tucker. Look, I know I've rubbed some people the wrong way before, but let's be real. I'm good at what I do. You need me. Numbers don't lie." Dana stepped closer, her heels clicking on the tile like thunder in a cathedral. "You know what else doesn't lie?" she said, her voice steady. "The woman who walked out of this dealership last month in tears because you mocked her accent. The elderly man you tricked into an extended warranty he didn't need. The single mom you dismissed because she couldn't afford the rims." Malik's smile faltered. "I built this place," Dana continued, "to give people dignity, not to take it from them. And I won't let that poison walk back through these doors no matter how good you are at closing a deal." He looked around. No one came to his defense. Even Greg stared at the floor. "Seriously?" Malik asked. "This how it is now? You'd rather run this place with a bunch of softies than let someone actually drive sales?" Dana didn't blink. "I'd rather close the doors forever than sell cars through shame." That was it. Malik scoffed, turned, and walked out, muttering under his breath. The doors closed behind him. Silence hung in the air. Dana turned back to her staff. "I don't care how many trophies someone's got. If they can't treat people like human beings, they don't belong here." Greg nodded solemnly. Troy exhaled slowly. Jessica whispered, "About time." The rest of the day unfolded with a kind of renewed energy, like a storm had passed and the sky was finally clearing. Customers came in and left smiling. The receptionist even received flowers from a woman who had come in 2 weeks ago and finally felt like someone cared enough to call her back. By closing time, the entire team had met their daily sales goal, without pressure, without manipulation, and without anyone strutting around like a god. Dana gathered them once more in the center of the floor. "You faced your past today," she said, looking around, "and you stood your ground. No one said a word, but their posture said everything. Pride. Earned. You're building something new now, something that can last. But this isn't a finish line, it's the foundation, and it will be tested. Troy asked quietly, by people like Malik? Dana nodded. Yes, and by moments of fatigue, laziness, ego, but that's the beauty of culture. You don't just set it, you protect it. Together. She placed a hand on the closest desk and tapped it twice. This, she said, this is what rebuilding looks like, and it's worth every hard conversation. Jessica cleared her throat. So what's next? Dana smiled for real this time. We grow. Slowly, deliberately, with every customer, every handshake, every single person who walks through those doors. She looked at them, one by one. And with every single one of you choosing, again and again, to be better than the person you were the day before. She turned to walk back to her office but paused. Oh, and drinks at Murphy's tonight? She added with a playful smirk. On me. Laughter rippled through the room. But it wasn't the old kind. It wasn't smug, or cruel, or hollow. It was real, human, hopeful. And for Dana Tucker, it was the sweetest sound she'd heard in that building in years. The following week began not with fanfare or drama, but with something better, consistency. For Dana Tucker, that was more valuable than any quarterly gain. The phones rang and were answered. Walk-ins were met with warmth, not glances at the clock. And the team had begun to carry themselves differently. Not out of fear of her return, but out of pride in what the dealership stood for again. Greg had even instituted a morning huddle, nothing formal, just 5 minutes to check in, share goals, and recognize someone who'd gone above and beyond the day before. Jessica surprised everyone by showing up 30 minutes early each morning just to prep the front desk with new water bottles, brochures, and even a fresh flower arrangement. But on Wednesday morning, just after 11 a.m., a new test of their progress walked through the door. Literally. She entered wearing a faded hoodie, ripped jeans, and a bulky green backpack with one strap frayed to the threads. Her shoes were scuffed, and her hair was tied in a knot that looked like it hadn't been brushed in a few days. She held a notepad with bent corners and a pen that barely clicked. Dana saw her immediately, because in that woman, she saw herself. Not the CEO she was now, but the scrappy girl from 12 years ago, walking into a bank lobby hoping for a business loan while the manager watched her like she was about to steal a pen. Jessica looked up from her desk. A flicker of hesitation passed through her features, just a flicker. But it passed. She stood. Hi there, welcome to Tucker Auto Haas. How can we help today? The woman looked startled to even be spoken to. She blinked. I know this might sound stupid, but I was wondering if y'all had any used SUVs under 10 grand. Her voice was apologetic. Wine. Troy, who had just stepped onto the floor with a latte in hand, overheard her. He pivoted fast and approached with his signature calm. Not a stupid question at all, he said. You mind if I ask what you're looking for in a car? Size? Mileage? Any non-negotiables? The woman seemed stunned by the genuine interest. Something I can drive to nursing school. I got into Baton Rouge Medical College. Starts next month. My last car gave out 2 weeks ago, and I need to be able to get there. Dana stepped forward then, not to interfere, but to be present. The team was doing this on their own. Jessica pulled up a list of trade-ins that hadn't even been polished yet. Troy grabbed keys to a modest, older Toyota Highlander they'd gotten the week before from a loyal customer who'd upgraded. It's a little older, he said, but the engine's clean and it's been babied. The last owner was a retired mechanic. Really? The woman whispered, almost afraid to believe it. We can take a look right now if you've got time, Troy added. Jessica chimed in, and if you'd like, we can run financing options too. No pressure, just info. The woman nodded slowly. Yeah, I'd like that. I didn't think anyone would. Her voice broke. Dana saw the tears behind her eyes and felt her own throat tighten. I didn't think anyone would take me seriously looking like this, the woman admitted. Troy smiled gently. Ma'am, if your car gets you to class, to a job, to whatever dream you've got, that's serious enough for us. She laughed, and the sound was half relief, half disbelief. Jessica handed her a water bottle. What's your name? Lauren, the woman replied. Welcome, Lauren, Dana said softly. We're glad you're here. An hour later, Lauren sat in the Highlander's driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the first solid ground she'd had in weeks. Dana watched from the sidewalk as Troy sat in the passenger seat, calmly walking her through the dashboard. She didn't try to dominate the moment. She didn't need to. The test had already been passed. But just as she turned to walk back inside, Dana's phone buzzed. It was a call from Kendra Harris, a local reporter with the Baton Rouge Ledger. She'd been trying to schedule an interview ever since word got out about Dana's undercover story. Some anonymous employee, Dana suspected one of the junior salespeople, had written an email praising Miss Tucker's quiet leadership revolution. Dana had declined the interview twice already. But something about the timing, seeing Lauren walk through those doors and how the team responded, made her pause. She picked up, "Kendra?" "Dana Tucker." The reporter's voice jumped with surprise. "Miss Tucker, I wasn't sure you'd ever call back." "I wasn't sure either," Dana said, watching through the showroom window as Jessica and the receptionist laughed at a dad joke Greg had just told. "But maybe it's time people hear a different kind of business story." "Really?" Kendra asked. "You mean the undercover thing?" Dana paused. "Not just that. I mean, what happens when a company remembers who it's supposed to serve, when we stop selling status and start offering dignity?" The line was quiet for a moment. "That's not a quote I expected," Kendra said. "It's better." "Let's schedule something," Dana replied. "Come down to the dealership, meet the people, talk to the ones who chose to stay when they didn't have to." Kendra's voice warmed. "I will. And Miss Tucker? Yes? Thanks for calling back. The world needs more stories like yours." Dana looked out at the lot again. Lauren was stepping out of the car, beaming now. She didn't look like a charity case. She didn't look out of place. She looked like someone who belonged. And maybe that was all anyone ever really wanted, more than money, more than luxury, more than ego. To belong. That evening, after the doors were locked and the lights dimmed, Dana stayed behind. Alone. She walked the floor slowly, running her fingers along the hood of a Cadillac, tapping a knuckle on the fender of a Porsche, passing the humble Highlander that now had a sold sign in the window with Lauren's name in bold black marker. This wasn't just a business anymore. It never had been. It was a place where people came to build lives, to dream, to start again. And now, it finally reflected that truth again. She turned off the last row of lights and stared out the showroom's glass doors into the quiet night. One phrase rang in her mind again. Her father's voice. Immortal. You see a problem. You don't walk around it. You crush it, so it never comes back. But maybe, just maybe, what he meant was this. You don't crush people. You crush the lies that tell them they're not enough. You crush the arrogance that convinces us kindness is weakness. You crush the systems that reward cruelty and punish humility. Dana turned, keys in hand, heart full. This dealership wasn't perfect, but it was finally right, and that was a start. Friday morning brought a chill in the air, unusual for Baton Rouge in late spring. Dana Tucker stood in front of the dealership's glass facade just before sunrise, coffee in hand, eyes fixed on the sky as a flock of birds cut across it like a silent wave. She knew today would be different. Not because of any special event or big sale, but because today was audit day. Every quarter, an independent evaluator from Tucker Autohouse's corporate oversight partner came to inspect operations, customer service, compliance, performance metrics, employee conduct, and brand consistency. It was standard procedure for larger franchises, and Dana had always welcomed it. But this time, it wasn't just about metrics. It was personal. The last evaluation, conducted 3 months ago, had quietly devastated her. While the numbers looked acceptable, the customer service feedback was brutal. Words like cold, unapproachable, and dismissive appeared again and again. The evaluator had noted a culture of detachment and concerning insensitivity toward non-wealthy clients. Dana hadn't forgotten a single line. That report had planted the seed that ultimately led her to go undercover. And now, today's audit would show just how far they'd come, or how far they still had to go. By 9 a.m., the staff was in position. Greg wore his best blazer and had even ironed it this time. Jessica brought fresh pastries from a local bakery and placed them neatly on the welcome desk. Troy had rehearsed the updated process sheets with the junior team twice before opening. But Dana had given them one rule for today. No performances. No extra smiles, no fake greetings. She had said during their morning huddle, just keep doing what you've been doing. If we've really changed, it'll show. And she meant it. The evaluator arrived precisely at 9:15 a.m. Her name was Marissa Conway, mid-40s, precise in both words and wardrobe. She wore a gray pencil skirt, no-nonsense pumps, and carried a leather folio under one arm. She moved like someone who'd seen it all, and trusted almost none of it. She greeted Dana with a firm handshake. "Miss Tucker. A pleasure." "Likewise," Dana replied. "You'll be walking the floor independently today, no red carpets." Marissa nodded once, professionally. "That's how I prefer it." And just like that, she slipped into the showroom, silently observing from behind shelves, watching conversations, listening to tone, scribbling notes. The staff didn't know where she'd appear next, and that was exactly how Dana wanted it. By late morning, Marissa had already spoken with 3 customers and had watched 4 different interactions between sales staff and visitors. She paused longest when Jessica calmly helped a woman whose husband had recently passed. She was nervous about buying her first car on her own. Jessica never rushed her, never oversold. She just listened and answered her questions like they mattered. Troy impressed Marissa when he handled a refund issue with a customer who had been mistakenly charged for add-ons he never agreed to. The customer was irate at first, but Troy diffused the situation with honesty and compassion, even offering him a full walkthrough of the SUV's features to make up for the error. Dana, watching discreetly from her office window, felt something tight in her chest slowly release. They were doing it. For real. Not for her approval. Not for the audit, but because it had become who they were. At noon, Marissa returned to Dana's office with her usual inscrutable expression. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Of course." They sat across from one another at the glass desk Dana had once considered replacing with a mahogany one, but never did. It reminded her of where she started. Transparent, unpretentious. Marissa flipped open her folio. "This is not the same dealership I visited in January." Dana said nothing. Marissa continued. "Last time I found a team running on ego and inertia. Sales tactics focused more on filters than fundamentals. You passed your compliance checks, but your heart, it was hollow." Dana nodded. "I know. That's why I had to go undercover." Marissa arched an eyebrow. "That was you, the trainee?" "I needed to see it with my own eyes, and I needed them to see me without knowing who I was." Marissa sat back, clearly intrigued. "Well, it worked." Dana leaned forward slightly. "What did you see this time?" The evaluator didn't smile, but her voice softened. "I saw a woman crying in gratitude because your staff treated her like she belonged, even though she walked in scared. I saw an elderly man offered a seat before he even spoke. I saw Troy, your former cool guy, calmly apologize to a young father for a paperwork delay and then walk him through the financing step by step twice." Dana exhaled, quietly. "Is it perfect? No," Marissa added. "But it's honest, and for the first time it feels like your values are alive on this floor." Dana leaned back in her chair. "Thank you." "You're not just selling cars anymore," Marissa said, standing. "You're offering respect, and that sells itself." She left the office without another word. Dana stared at the closed door for a moment, letting the moment settle. Then she smiled, not the polished kind for shareholders, but a quiet personal one. Progress. Later that afternoon, Dana brought the team together. They gathered again in the center of the floor, the place that had witnessed their failure, their awakening, and now their growth. "The audit's done," she told them. Greg rubbed his hands nervously. "Well, she said what I hoped she'd say," Dana replied. "That we're not perfect, but we're real. That what we stand for shows in how we work." Jessica let out a long breath. "Feels good?" Dana nodded. "You made it feel good?" She pulled something from her pocket, a copy of the old audit report, held it up. "This," she said, "this is who we were." She then reached into her other pocket and held up a new sheet, Marissa's preliminary notes. "And this is who we are becoming." She didn't need to read either aloud. They all understood. "You didn't fake this for an audit," she said. "You've earned this." She paused, letting the moment breathe. "But let me remind you, reputation is fragile. Trust is fragile. Culture is fragile. And all of it is built or broken every time someone walks through that door." They nodded, solemn now. "But I believe in you," she finished. "And more importantly, you're starting to believe in yourselves." They clapped, not loudly, but meaningfully. And when the clapping faded, Greg raised his hand like a kid in class. Does this mean we're getting a bonus? Laughter erupted, and this time Dana joined in. Ask me again after next month's numbers, she teased. But inside, she already knew. The real bonus was walking out the door happy and knowing they'd be back. Because this dealership finally felt like home again. The next Monday began like any other. Early light poured through the towering glass panes of Tucker Autohaus, spilling across the showroom floor where high-end vehicles gleamed in perfect formation. The dealership had found its rhythm, steady, purposeful, proud. But Dana Tucker knew better than to mistake rhythm for arrival. Every day was still a test. And today, that test would come in a form she never saw coming. She was reviewing vendor invoices in her office when her assistant tapped gently on the glass door. Dana, she said, half whispering. There's a woman here. Says she used to work with you. Long time ago. She's asking to see you personally. Dana's brow furrowed. She rose from her desk and stepped out. At the front of the showroom stood a woman in her 60s. Her gray hair was pulled into a neat ponytail, her jacket well-worn but spotless, her posture regal in that unshakable way only working-class women seem to master. In her hand, she clutched a small envelope. Dana stared for a moment, blinking against the surprise. "Miss Evelyn?" she said quietly. The woman turned, eyes widening. "Well, I'll be," Evelyn said, smiling. "You remember?" "How could I forget?" Dana replied, walking toward her with genuine warmth. "You're the one who gave me my first sales lead when I was still selling used trucks on River Street." Evelyn chuckled. "You mean the woman with the three-legged poodle and the duct-taped minivan?" "That's the one." Dana laughed. They hugged, and for a few seconds, time folded back on itself. They sat down together in the lounge area as customers moved in and out of the showroom. Greg brought over coffee without being asked. Jessica offered a slice of banana bread she'd brought in from home. Nobody needed to be told who Evelyn was. Dana's tone said it all. "You were the only one who treated me like I could actually make it," Dana said, cradling the coffee in her hands. "Back when I didn't even believe that myself." "You were the hungriest kid I'd ever seen," Evelyn replied. "Didn't matter how broke you looked or how much doubt you dragged behind you, you walked like you belonged. So I made sure everyone else saw it too." Dana's throat tightened. "And now look at you," Evelyn added, her gaze sweeping the shining showroom. "CEO of this fortress of chrome and glass." Dana laughed. "Fortress with a lot of dents I've been busy repairing." Evelyn tilted her head. "Oh, I heard. That undercover stunt made the local news. Ballsy." Dana nodded. "Had to see the truth. From the ground level." Evelyn reached into her coat and pulled out the envelope. "I actually didn't come here just to catch up," she said, handing it over. Dana opened it carefully. Inside was a photocopied flyer, her old flyer, faded, crooked, from more than a decade ago. "Need a reliable used ride? Call Dana. Honest deals, no pressure, just hustle." Dana stared at it. "I kept it all these years," Evelyn said softly. "Not because I ever needed a car, I had mine forever, but because it reminded me that good people can win, even in a dirty business." Dana swallowed hard, her voice caught behind emotion. "I came today," Evelyn continued, "because my granddaughter's ready to buy her first car. I wanted her to meet the woman I've been bragging about since she was 5. Dana smiled through glassy eyes. "Well," she said, standing, "then she's about to get the red carpet treatment." An hour later, Dana personally walked Evelyn's granddaughter, Naomi, a poised 23-year-old nursing student, through the entire car buying process. They found her a reliable certified pre-owned hybrid with low mileage and perfect service history. Naomi asked thoughtful questions. Dana answered each one honestly, without rush. But what moved her most wasn't Naomi's curiosity, it was her confidence. She wasn't apologizing for her student loans or second-guessing her worth. She knew what she deserved, and Dana knew exactly where that came from. Evelyn. Before they signed the papers, Naomi looked at Dana and said, "You know, my grandma always said the real test of a person is whether they make other people feel small or strong." Dana smiled. "That sounds like something she'd say." Naomi laughed. "She also said you once sold a car in the rain with no umbrella, holding a clipboard in one hand and a donut in the other." Dana grinned. "That's true, and it was jelly-filled. I still have the stains to prove it." After the paperwork was done, and Naomi drove off in her new car, beaming, proud, and independent, Evelyn turned to Dana one last time at the entrance. "You fixed it," she said. Whatever had broken here, you put it back together. Dana shook her head slowly. No, she said. We did. Together. Evelyn touched her arm gently. Well, just don't forget how rare that is. A place that comes full circle with its soul still intact. And with that, Evelyn walked away, back into the breeze, her legacy carried forward in the young woman who now drove with possibility at her fingertips. That evening, long after the last customer had left and the showroom lights had dimmed to a soft amber glow, Dana stayed behind. She walked the floor alone, past the Jaguars, past the Hondas, past the desk where she had once been dismissed as a flea market trainee. She paused at the corner where she'd clapped her hands and revealed who she was, where everything had changed. She pulled the old flyer from her jacket pocket and taped it to the inside of her office cabinet. Not for decoration, for memory. To remember what it cost her to build this place. To remember the voices that lifted her. To remember the moments when it nearly fell apart. And to remember that sometimes the strongest revolutions aren't the loudest ones. They're quiet, determined, and built one human choice at a time. The following week brought rain, thick, southern rain that drummed against the showroom skylights like a soft, relentless reminder. Not every storm comes to destroy. Some come to wash away. Inside Tucker Auto House, the rhythm carried on. The team, now fully settled into their new culture, worked with a blend of grace and grounded purpose. There were no more whispers, no more raised eyebrows when someone walked in wearing muddy boots or carrying a baby. Dana had done more than change the rules. She had changed the standard. But just as the winds outside shifted, so too did the emotional weather inside the dealership. At 3:42 p.m., the glass doors parted and a man stepped inside. He was soaked to the bone, clutching a plastic folder over his head like a makeshift umbrella. His suit, cheap and too tight in the shoulders, clung to his skin. His shoes squelched with every step. Jessica looked up from her desk, ready with a greeting, when she recognized the face. Her smile faltered. Greg turned from the printer and froze. Troy, mid-conversation with a client, stole a glance and tightened his jaw. Dana, sitting in her office, saw the ripples. She stood. The man removed the folder from his head and wiped his face with his sleeve. It was Malik Santos, the ex-top seller, the arrogant shark, the swaggering ego who'd been shown the door weeks ago. Only now he didn't look like a shark. He looked like a man who'd run out of places to swim. Is Dana here? He asked, voice low, almost humble. Troy opened his mouth to speak, but Dana had already emerged from her office. I'm here, she said calmly. Their eyes met. The storm outside roared louder. Malik looked different, and not just because he was wet. His shoulders slumped in a way they never had before. His hands, once constantly in motion with confidence, now hung at his sides, still uncertain. Can we talk? He asked. Dana glanced at the team. No one said a word. Yes, she replied. Follow me. She led him not to her office, but to the small break room, neutral ground. The same place he once laughed about, flea market hires and yard sale specials. Now he took a seat at the wobbly table, rainwater pooling at his heels. Dana remained standing. I know I'm the last person you want to see, Malik began. I wouldn't be here if I had any other choice. Dana said nothing. He took a breath. I messed up, he said. I thought I was untouchable. I thought I was the brand. I was wrong. Still, Dana said nothing, not out of cruelty, but because silence was often the best truth serum. I got hired at another dealership right after you suspended me, he continued. High-end imports, sleek floors, loud bosses, but within 2 weeks, I saw it for what it was, worse than anything I did here. He looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. They lied to customers, switched paperwork, pressured people who didn't speak English well. I saw a woman break down in the finance office because they pushed her into a payment she couldn't afford. Dana remained quiet. I tried to call it out. Manager told me to fall in line or leave, so I left. He chuckled, bitterly. 2 weeks later, I was out of money. My reps ruined. No one wants to hire a guy who walked out on a job and got suspended from his last one. He lowered his head. This place is the only place I've ever felt like I actually belonged. And I know I didn't act like it, but I do now. I know what I threw away. Finally, Dana spoke. Why come back? He didn't flinch at the question. Because you were right, he said. All of it. I didn't treat people with dignity. I didn't care about anything but the sale. And the worst part, I looked down on people who reminded me of who I used to be. Dana studied him. Tell me something, she said softly. What would you say to the woman you laughed about in this very room, the one who couldn't afford a bumper, remember? Malik's face fell. I'd say, I'm sorry, he replied, and that she deserved better, and that I didn't. Not then. Dana let the silence sit between them, then she stood. I built this place for people who needed second chances, she said. I was one of them. He looked up. But this isn't the same Tucker Auto Haus you walked into last time, she added. This place now, it's different, it's honest, it's proud. I want to be part of that, he whispered. Dana reached into the cabinet and pulled out a slim black folder. She placed it in front of him. Inside, the new code of conduct. Same one she'd handed to Greg, Jessica, and Troy. Same one they'd all signed. Malik stared at it for a moment, then opened it. Read it slowly, every line. And when he reached the bottom, he pulled out a pen from his soaked jacket and signed his name, carefully, neatly. Dana didn't smile. Not yet, but she offered him a towel. Dry off, she said. You start at the bottom. He nodded. I should. And you shadow Greg for a week, she added. Malik blinked. Greg? Dana smiled. He asked to mentor new hires, said he owed the process something. Malik stood, towel clutched like a lifeline. Thank you, he said. You won't regret this. Dana turned to leave. Make sure I don't, she said over her shoulder. That night, as the rain tapered into mist and the last cars pulled out of the lot, Dana stood at her office window and watched Malik mop the floors. No one asked him to. But he did it anyway. Greg offered to help, and the two exchanged a brief handshake, a moment of grace between former egos, now softened by truth. Troy passed him a water bottle. Jessica even brought him an extra pair of dry socks from the employee closet. A week ago, she would have rolled her eyes. Now, they were all in this together. And in the reflection of the glass, Dana saw herself again, not just as a leader, but as someone who had turned a building of machines into a house of redemption. This dealership had always sold dreams, but now it gave something better, a chance to start again. The final Friday of the month arrived with sunlight breaking clean across the horizon, casting golden stripes through the wide windows of Tucker Auto Haus. Birds perched on power lines, traffic hummed in the distance, and inside the dealership, the air felt full of energy, of motion, of promise. Dana Tucker stood at the back of the showroom, coffee in hand, surveying what had become of the empire she built, and nearly lost. It didn't gleam with fake perfection anymore. It breathed. Jessica was showing a young couple an SUV with patience in her voice and joy in her posture. Troy was kneeling beside a retired Navy vet, explaining how to adjust the adaptive controls in a used Chrysler Pacifica. Even Malik, yes, Malik, was taking his time walking a nervous teenager and his mom through the pros and cons of leasing versus buying. No arrogance, no games, just people serving people. Dana sipped her coffee, content to watch, but by mid-morning, a surprise guest arrived. Her assistant, Ava, poked her head in the office doorway. Dana, there's a man here from the Baton Rouge Business Alliance. Says he doesn't have an appointment, but he brought something he wants to deliver in person. Dana raised an eyebrow. Send him in. A tall man in a gray vest and lavender tie stepped inside. His name tag read, Richard Kellman, Regional Chair. Miss Tucker, he said, extending a hand. I've wanted to meet you for years. And now, especially after what I've heard these past few weeks, I decided I shouldn't wait any longer. Dana stood, shaking his hand firmly. Good to meet you, Mr. Kellman. He held up a small envelope, thick and embossed. This is from the board of the Alliance. We've been monitoring the transformation here, quietly, listening to community feedback, reading press coverage, watching how you handled internal reform. Dana opened the envelope slowly. Inside, an official notice from the Alliance naming Tucker Auto Haus as the recipient of the Community Business Honor Award, a distinction reserved for only one enterprise per year across the entire state. She blinked. Richard smiled. It's not just for profit margins, he said. It's for moral leadership, for taking a company headed toward collapse and steering it into the light. The way you led, we don't see that often, and we want the city to know what it looks like. Dana swallowed, deeply moved. Thank you. Richard paused, then added, I do have one favor to ask. Dana tilted her head. We're organizing a roundtable, small, private, of young black women entrepreneurs, first-time founders, ages 21 to 30. They've all hit walls, financial, emotional, societal. We were hoping you'd speak at it. Tell them your story." Dana didn't hesitate. "I'll be there," she said. "Name the date." Later that afternoon, when the lunch rush subsided, Dana gathered the team in the center of the floor. Once again, under the skylight that had witnessed her collapse, her confrontation, and her rebuild, she called them together. Greg, Jessica, Troy, Malik, even the interns and part-time receptionists. "This," she began, holding up the award letter, "belongs to all of you." The team murmured in surprise, leaning in. "We were named Business of the Year, not because of how many cars we sold, but because of how we sell. Because when people walk in here now, they leave feeling seen, dignified, safe." She looked around the circle. "You all know what this place used to be. You remember the shameful moments, the arrogance, the silence when help was needed." Troy nodded solemnly. "You also know the turning point, the moment we chose to face it, to change, and you didn't just accept the change, you fought for it." Jessica folded her arms with pride. "We built this version." Dana smiled. "Yes, you did." She took a deep breath. "I want each of you to know something. Whatever you go on to do in this world, whatever title, business, or career you build, I hope you remember this place. Not for its cars, not even for its name." She tapped the spot where her father's quote now hung in a frame behind the reception desk. "When you see a problem, crush it so it never comes back. I hope you remember this as the place where we didn't turn away from the problem. We turned toward it, together." A silence followed, but this silence wasn't heavy, it was whole. Then, slowly, a few people clapped. It wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. Because the power of transformation isn't measured in applause. It's measured in what happens after the music fades, in who you choose to be when no one's watching. That evening, as the sun bled gold across the sky, Dana walked the lot with her shoes in her hand. Just grass between her toes. Her Tesla sat parked where she always left it, the same way her old Chevy truck used to. She made her way to the very back of the lot, where the trade-ins sat. Modest, imperfect cars waiting for someone who didn't care about shine, just reliability. There, alone under the amber sky, was the Highlander she had helped Lauren buy. Dana had personally scheduled the 60-day follow-up detailing for it, just a small thank you for reminding them all what mattered. She ran her fingers along the doorframe. This car hadn't just transported someone to nursing school. It had transported a culture back to its center. She heard footsteps. Malik, he didn't speak at first, just stood next to her. "I'm grateful," he said quietly. "For the second chance," Dana nodded. "You earned it." "I didn't at first," he admitted. "But watching this team, watching you, I realized something." She turned to him. "What's that?" "That respect doesn't start with others," he said. "It starts with how you see yourself." Dana's heart clenched. Because that truth, it was hers too. She once saw herself as just another poor girl with ambition too big for her bank account, until she chose to see herself differently, to act on that vision, and never apologize for it. Malik looked at the car. "That Highlander belongs to someone who's going to change lives." Dana smiled. "She already has." That night, she left a light on in the office, not out of forgetfulness, but as a reminder that no matter how dark the day might get, there would always be one place, one flame still burning. Not for show, but for those who needed to know they were seen, they were valued, and they were welcome. Not just as customers, not just as employees, but as humans. Tucker Auto House wasn't just rebuilt, it had been reborn. And Dana Tucker, she wasn't just a CEO anymore, she was a guardian of dignity. And her story, quiet, bold, and full of earned light, was just beginning to echo far beyond the showroom. To anyone watching this, if you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or disrespected in a place where you should have been valued, let this story remind you, you are not small. Dignity isn't about your clothes, your title, or your wallet. It's about how you carry yourself when no one else believes in you. And when leadership rises from the ashes of arrogance, everything can change. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your worth, don't forget to subscribe, share your story in the comments, and join us as we continue telling the truth, one powerful story at a time.